When I was 15 years old, I was in the jungles of the Philippines, and I had the privilege of meeting an incredible young boy who was born with his feet on backwards. And because he was born this way, his village looked at him as less than, as insignificant, as cursed, and he was treated as a throwaway. But that day, I knew he wasn't a throwaway to God, but I felt like God was pricking my heart saying, yeah, Timmy, but what is he gonna be to you? Meaning, what are you actually gonna really do about it? And you see, that day, I knew that I love sports. I knew that I loved trying to be my best, and maybe every now and then being the best in a game and trying to win state championships at the time. And I just loved the pursuit of it. But I also felt like that day God was pricking my heart, saying, Timmy, I have a more important MVP for you to chase. It's not the most valuable player awards. It's the most vulnerable people, and which one is gonna mean more to you? You know, in our house just down the street in Jacksonville, Florida, I have a portrait of an incredible boy that made a radical impact on my life. And it's framed right in our TV room where I walk in and I go to watch a lot of games, and I leave sometimes being happy and sometimes being frustrated, but I have it there as a reminder. So every time I walk by, I remember that boy, because that was an incredible boy that I had the chance to hold and carry and laugh with many times. You see, years ago, that boy was found tied up, chained up, like he was a dog. And through our partners and through our team, bringing him to safety and caring for him, many times I would get to hold him and care for him. And he wasn't a boy that had the ability to walk, and he didn't have the ability to speak. But I tell you what, his greatest ability was that he would light up a room. And he did. He lit up a lot of rooms, and he lit up a lot of lives, mine being one of them. One day, the sweet boy got sick. He was brought to a hospital. And I said, no, we're not gonna care for you. Brought to a second hospital, no, we're not gonna care for you. Brought to a third hospital, no, we're not gonna care for you. And by the time he got to the fourth hospital, they did take him in, but before they were able to give him treatment, the sweet boy passed away. And now I have his portrait on my wall to remember what God's calling us to do. To remember who God is calling us to run after. And to remember how many lives are not being treated as image bearers. That is an MVP. That's God's MVP. That boy is so valuable to God. And he's in such a vulnerable position. Boys and girls like him all around the world right now. One of our initiatives, that's one of my favorite initiatives, is, I'm biased, but it's something called Night to Shine, and it's our worldwide celebration for individuals with special needs. And we're so fortunate in its time. It's been able to be in over 72 nations. This last year was in 56 countries and all 50 states. And it is centered on God's love for humanity. And I just love this night so much. It's actually how through Night to Shine, I got to meet my wife, who had a little baby sister with severe special needs. And before God took her home, I had the privilege of getting to meet her. And it's been a night that has impacted my life and hopefully many lives around the world. But one of the impacts from Night to Shine was from a mom that has a daughter with special needs. Before she even brought her daughter with special needs to be a part of Night to Shine, she went as a volunteer. And after Night to Shine, she wrote us a letter. And I don't feel like she was writing it just to us or just to me. I feel like she was writing it to you. I feel like she was writing it to all of us. And it's titled, Don't Forget My Girl. I once said that when you have a child with special needs, every child with special needs is your child. I'm not sure that's right, but sometimes it feels that way. I'm sensitive to some of the struggles and sorrows and triumphs and joys as others, as if they were my own children. I'm liable to get weepy at the grocery store or when I see a man with special needs doing his job and loving his job and touching the lives of the people around him. So perhaps you can imagine my joy multiplied by 100, seeing our guests lavishly loved and treasured and honored with a night that was made just for them. There have been times I've wanted to shout to everyone and no one in particular, don't forget my girl. It's not easy, I know, but she's here, sitting in the dark, waiting for you to sit with her, see her, know her. Don't forget my girl. At night to shine, God whispered to me, I will never ever forget her. She is famous to me like an A-lister walking the red carpet. I throw a party, serve the best food, and clothe her in love. I pamper her with my goodness and put a crown on her head. She is precious and she is mine. How extravagant is the love of God for us. Don't forget my girl. Guys, would we not forget so many of these MVPs? Would we not look past? Would we not look around? But would we do anything and everything we possibly can so that these MVPs in the most vulnerable situations could realize they're actually the most valuable? And when we look at the life of Jesus and his publicly recorded miracles, we know that over 60% of his publicly recorded miracles were for those who were afflicted. And when you translate that in today's age, that means some form of special need. So we know that King Jesus had a heart and has a heart for those with disabilities, for those with special needs. And would we have that heart for those that are being afflicted, that heart for those that are being looked past, that heart for those that are being treated as less than. A few years ago at Night to Shine, there was a red carpet out front and there was cars driving by, and all of the kings and queens, because every single one of our honored guests are kings and queens at Night to Shine, and they're driving by. And they're driving by many in convertibles, and they're standing in the back and they're waving to everyone as they drive by. And there's this red Corvette that drives by, and there's this sweet young girl in a pink dress standing and waving to everyone, and she is just shining so bright as she drives by. And I'm cheering and yelling and yelling and yelling for her, and then the car driving so slow, but it drives right by. And as it drives by, I see on the back of the car the sign that's on the back. And I didn't even know our team was making these signs, but on the back it said royalty on board. And I thought, that's it. That's what she is. That's who she is. She's God's royalty. Please, don't forget my girl. Entrepreneur, investor, please don't forget my girl, your girl, God's girl. Don't forget that you have a chance to make such a difference in her life. Would you figure out a way to minister her, to give her an opportunity, to give her a job? Would you figure out a way to give her parents respite? Could you imagine if you're the mom and the dad of a boy or girl with special needs and you never ever get to have a break? But would you care enough to build positions for them? And then can I also say, it will probably help you build the best culture you've ever had. Why? Because man, they're so infused with God's love and joy. You know, with Night to Shine, I've been able to be in I don't know how many countries for it, and there's only one that I can actually speak the language. And by the way, I'm not even that good at English. But you know, it changes nothing. There is no difference between Night to Shine in Jacksonville, Florida, or Dallas, Texas, or LA, or in Guatemala, or Africa, or the Philippines, or Thailand. Why? Because it's not centered on what language we speak. It's centered on God's love. Let that be the culture that is infused in your company, where that joy is brought every single day. And one of the companies that my opinion, have done such a good job of hiring people with special needs as Publix, and still to this day, my parents will pass like 19 grocery stores just to go to Publix so that they can support all of the incredible young men and women that work at Publix. And when I was young, I'd be like, Mom, do we really have to pass all these stores? Like, let's just stop. And no, she wanted to go see them because not only did she want to support them, but man, it brought joy to her life. It brought joy to our life. Let's not forget that it is contagious. That joy is contagious. You want to have a company that is compassionate. You want to have a culture that is built on love and compassion. What if it was built around loving people with special needs, just like Jesus did? I believe that would help your culture. I believe people would thrive. I believe it would be so contagious that people would then want to go do more. They would want to show up. And I've heard so many stories and testimonies of this taking place all around the country and all around the world. But you have the chance to use your company, to use your investments, to use your opportunities, resources, and relationships to not forget that girl.